Happy October, you fine people. The best, most joyful, marvelous, spectacular month of the year is here. 2025 can honestly only be described as a very interesting year, which honestly is the same description for every other year, especially in the world of horror. There's just never gonna be a flawless streak of bangers, and there's always gonna be some stinkers. But every contribution, every view, every opinion on any horror movie is good. All publicity is good publicity, and that is the most true for horror. So those stinkers are also important. Every movie, no matter how bad it is vital because it keeps the genre afloat. And every movie has at least one good thing about it. A movie is comprised of dozens, if not hundreds of people, and at least one person had to have been doing their job well. It's not a secret, horror is the genre that gets put into a corner and gets written off more so than any other genre, and because of that, it always feels like it's a lap behind every other genre and has to put in so much more effort to just get some recognition and to just stay relevant among general audiences. As usual, 2025 started off really rocky, but we've had some absolutely fantastic films this year too. That being said, it's the best month of the year to be a horror fan, and I figured I'd share some of my favorite movies to watch during the month. Last year I did a list similar to this, and I'll include it if you want to check it out. And it goes without saying, this list does not go from best to worst or favorite to least favorite, none of that. First up is Chuck Russell's 1988 remake of The Blob, although the 1958 movie is also a great watch as well, but this has Amanda Young before she's Amanda Young. So of course it's gonna have great performances from Shawnee Smith and Kevin Dillon. A deadly entity from space crash lands near a small town and begins consuming everyone in its path. Panic ensues as shady government scientists try to contain the horrific creature. This movie on all fronts is balanced as hell. The practical effects are so good. So much so that they hold up really well by today's standards. Plenty of drama, likable characters. I love when a movie is able to make me actually interested in side characters, because usually it's so easy to just disregard them and focus on the main cast. But making small town folk interesting and be actual individuals levels up a movie as a whole, at least for me. There's great plot twists, because if you know the movie, you know who ends up being the heroes of the story, but you can't sit there and say that on a first time viewing you knew that Paul would die. He was like the stand-in, good guy, boyfriend material kind of dude. It subverts the audience expectations in great ways. I love the small town and the small town aesthetic. Give me a one high school, one sheriff, two deputies kind of story with a whole bunch of mom and pop shops around, and I'm gonna eat it up. Second on the list is Let Me In, starring Chloe Grace Moretz. I grew up watching this version, but if you prefer the original Let the Right One In, that one's great too. This is one of those rare cases that, at least for me, the remake is almost just as good as the original. A bullied young boy befriends a young female vampire who lives in a secrecy with her guardian, and that relationship is the culmination of such a cute bond that is carved by a path of carnage. This movie is directed by Matt Reeves. You know, the guy that gave us the best version of the Batman? A lot of people probably don't know he also did this little film, but the elements of horror in the Batman don't come as a surprise if you knew of his previous work. I am not a fan of Chloe Grace Moretz in the Carrie remake, but I think she's a great actor, she's very likable, and she's great in Let Me In. It's absolutely brutal, with a lot of the gore being left to the imagination, but it's done in such an effective way that it's almost like you are seeing the brutality. Not to mention that a simple story can go a long way if done correctly. A young kid that gets bullied and always in harm's way, but has somebody that wants to look out for him, is such a sad but interesting story. It's told in such a sympathetic way that you almost never question the level of darkness because it's justified. You like the kids and you don't want to see them separated, and you just want to see them happy by the end. And the key to why this movie works so well is because of that connection between the kids. You also got Richard Jenkins in here as well. It's just a grand old time that's hard not to enjoy. The Crazies remake from 2010 is next on the list, and honestly, it's probably because of nostalgia, because I watched this multiple times growing up, and I just really enjoyed the movie. Also because I wanted to watch a zombie flick, and I didn't want to watch Dawn of the Dead or 28 Days Later, and I haven't seen this movie in a while. Anarchy reigns when an unknown toxin turns the peaceful citizens of Ogden Marsh into bloodthirsty lunatics. In an effort to contain the spread of the infection, authorities blockade the town and use deadly force to keep anyone from getting in or out. Now trapped among killers, Sheriff Dutton, his wife, and two companions must bond together to find a way out before madness and death overtakes them. It's got Timothy Olyphant, so you know it's gonna be a fun time. It's got that hyper gritty feel that the 2000s and 2010s were so obsessed with, and it's a strong enough remake to make George Romero probably content. And most importantly, at least for me, a zombie infected type of movie should have great sequences that have a lot of tension and suspense, and this movie has plenty of that. Freaky, starring Catherine Newton and Vince Vaughn, make for an iconic duo. These two are electric in this movie, and it's hard to find such a great pair that balances varying tones so well. After swapping bodies with a deranged serial killer, a high school senior discovers that she has fewer than 24 hours before the change becomes permanent. I watched this movie and still can't believe that Vince Vaughn played this role so well, not because he doesn't have the acting chops, but because he's an older 6'5" man, and it was probably really hard to emulate the same energy as a high school girl that's a whole foot smaller than him and has an entirely different set of problems than him. It's essential to have bad cops in good horror movies, and this has plenty of that stuff going on. Catherine Newton is fantastic as well. She's hilarious and quirky as hell as she normally is, but she's also somehow really menacing as well. Also, making this an R-rated movie is the best decision that Christopher Landon could have made because the gore is unexpectedly awesome. The mixture of light and dark tones of this movie never clash, and it just works out to be one of my favorite horror comedies. Dario Argento's 1975 Deep Red. Now, giallo horror is among the most beautiful and personalized horror. It's not up for debate because there is so much love poured into the making of these movies. You can be mesmerized by virtually any trade. You have the beautiful colors, the bold red blood.
Blood?
The stunning environments in which these movies usually take place, the gloves, the mystery that still holds up to this day. There's so much to love about these films. Yes, the dubbing is strange, there's a silly nature, and the melodramatic acting is all part of the charm that makes these movies so lovable. They're certainly not for everyone, but there's probably at least one movie that you'd probably like. Suspiria is an all-timer and probably among my favorite movies of all time, but Deep Red is so good. A jazz pianist and a wisecracking journalist are pulled into a complex web of mystery after the former witnesses the brutal murder of a psychic. I adore this movie. I think the mystery is among the best mysteries of any movie. There's constant tension. The clues in this movie feel like actual clues that really let you try and work out the puzzle. Listen, I know The Exorcist 3 has probably the best jump scare of all time, and there's little that can be said to argue that, but one of my favorite jump scares of all time is in Deep Red. It's such a brilliant setup. It's amazing. You're already on edge because you're following this detective and you don't want him to die, but you feel like there's somebody around the corner, and there's a brilliance in framing the door dead center in the middle of the screen, and you're just laser focused on that door because you think that's the only entrance into the room, and then out of nowhere on the bottom right of the screen you see a tiny door open and a little doll just like rockets out of the screen, and you're just completely taken aback because you're just not expecting that moment. It's so damn good. Even the way the doll walks out of there, it feels ethereal and unnatural. It was so expertly crafted. This movie is just amazing and I love it. Another oldie but goodie is due, and George Romero's Night of the Living Dead is my choice this year. A ragtag group of Pennsylvanians barricade themselves in an old farmhouse to remain safe from a horde of flesh-eating ghouls that are ravaging the northeast of the United States. Sure, it's dated, and compared to the various zombie iterations that we have nowadays, George Romero's versions feel just obsolete, but there's something charming about his version. Sometimes it's nice to peel off all of those layers and just appreciate the basics. And this movie is so effective. The performances are amazing. Judith O'Dea and Dwayne Jones are Hall of Famers. And even though the movie is dated, it's still really disturbing. Karen attacking her mother is still so upsetting, and just the subcontext of what the movie's talking about, whether Romero meant for it or not, it's still very present. It's one of those important movies that regardless of what your opinion on it is, it should not be forgotten. Next on the list is Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I love the Halloween series, despite its many flaws. I'm biased and I love this series, I love the characters, but I also am a fan of Season of the Witch. It is a genuine crime that this movie is written off to the degree that it is. Is this movie perfect? No, obviously not. I have my fair share of issues with it too, but it is really depressing when I hear people say, this movie sucks, it doesn't have Michael Myers. If you watch the movie and you don't like the movie for what it is in its own story, that's an entirely different thing, but to say that this movie movie sucks because it just doesn't have Michael Myers feels so shallow and annoying. Caveat being that it was a mistake to call this a Halloween movie. They should have known by this point that Michael Myers was already so popular. Anyway, rant over. The movie is so much fun. The characters are likable. Tom Atkins being a ladies man is funny as hell. I love seeing Nancy Loomis for as little time as she gets. The masks are great and iconic. Even the jingle is catchy. The mystery keeps you intrigued throughout most of the movie, which I think is quite impressive. There's a child death in this movie and it's so aggressive that it's comical because it's so unexpected. And to me, that ending just hit different. I love a nihilistic ending when the characters are trying their hardest and it just wasn't enough. I really love this movie. And to be honest, it's a better story than a lot of the other Halloween movies. The fall season is usually associated with a slower pace, a colder environment, and a movie that captures that masterfully well is Watcher, starring Micah Monroe. As a serial killer stalks the city, Julia, a young actress who just moved to town with her boyfriend, notices a mysterious stranger watching her from across the street in this terrifying thriller. You have the trademark husband that doesn't believe his wife despite her constantly expressing her discomfort. You have the fish out of water feel where Micah is constantly feeling isolated outside of her next door neighbor, and even the cops are useless as per usual. And the thing is, this movie is so good at convincing you to question whether or not she's actually misreading the situation. It's not an easy thing to do, and literally to the very end you're wondering, is she right or is she just homesick and feeling abandoned because on top of all of that her husband doesn't help her acclimate. Her husband is already adjusted clearly because of his work, but doesn't even try to help her feel immersed. Even going to the extent of talking behind her back about her is just downright heartless. But Micah is amazing. Every emotion or lack of emotion is felt in her performance. Her sense of panic and helplessness is so strong that without it, this movie would just fall apart. It's a small, simple movie that goes a long way in terms of effectiveness. Probably the most intense entry of this list, but I had to include it because it's a foreign film and it's just an unbelievable experience. The Girl with the Needle is not for the weak of heart, and your mileage may vary in terms of tolerance with the subject matter. It's not a horror movie in the traditional sense, but damn is it terrifying. Easily the most beautifully shot film in this list, the black and white color choice is extremely effective at making it feel even colder in a cold background. In Copenhagen, young pregnant Caroline takes on a position as a wet nurse for an older woman named Dagmar to help support herself. Dagmar operates a clandestine adoption agency under the guise of a candy shop, assisting disadvantaged mothers place their unwanted newborns in foster homes. Caroline grows closer to Dagmar, but she is soon faced with the nightmarish reality she unwittingly entered. This movie is so good and entertaining and weirdly funny, but then out of nowhere it hits you like a freight train and then there's no coming back after that point. It's extremely bleak, and even by the end there is a sense of catharsis, but by that point the damage is done, you know? It's a fantastic film, the performances are so good, and yes, there's a language barrier, but honestly you learn really quickly and it's a slower pace, so it's not really hard to keep up with. It's just a really impressive movie on every front and I highly recommend it. It's poetic that Halloween lands on a Friday this year, so obviously you have to end it off with a Friday the 13th entry, and my choice is the best one, the remake. There is just no contest. This is the most complete Friday the 13th entry in the entire franchise. It's basically the SparkNotes version of the entire series in the sense that it has all the best hits, all the best elements of the entire franchise while cutting out basically all the ugly, all while making it its own thing. This Jason is different than any other previous version. Derek Mears really brings his own stuff to this movie. He created the most intense, smart, dangerous version of all the Jasons bar none. He's just a freaking survivalist. He doesn't feel overly smart, so it never doesn't feel like Jason. You got Jared Padalecki, Danielle Panabaker, and just a likable set of funny characters. They're not annoying, they are self-aware, and they're ultimately just meatbags, but damn do they try their best to be entertaining and interesting. In a way, it's the culmination of the potential that this series always had. Out of the big three, this is my least favorite. Not to say I don't love it, but it is the weakest in my opinion. That being said, I've watched these movies so many times growing up, and even as a young, Lad, I remember thinking the best version of this hasn't even been made yet. There's always good stuff in these movies, but they're also always weighed down by the useless junk in each entry. But the 2009 version is the pinnacle of what this series could be, at least as of now. Sadly, it came at the cost of being the last entry in this series, and we are way overdue for a new Friday film. Until then though, this is a classic in my mind and one that I will always come back to and rewatch. Again, these are in no particular order, but I'm probably gonna watch these and more to properly enjoy the season. But that's it for me. I'd appreciate a thumbs up, subscribe, and sincerely yours, Anthony.